The ups and downs of the market is a normal occurrence, yet the average Canadian doesn't like to hear the word recession. Looking throughout history, we have seen the ups and downs kind of move in a cycle. We see expansion, we see recovery, we see a recession, but we aren't necessarily prepared for these moments all the time. Today we're going to look through just some practical tips and strategies to help kind of navigate through a recessionary period. By learning these steps, you are going to be well ahead of the curve. So let's hop right into it. Navigating financial opportunities within a recession requires a lot of research, discipline, and education to be able to look at those opportunities and be able to act on them. It's not just going on Reddit and searching up random stock and finding that hot pick for the day and putting money into it. It's making an informed decision or doing practical strategies in order to benefit yourself in the future. Now, before I hop into some tips, I want to just emphasize that this is not an indication that we're heading in a recession. It's not an indication that we're in a recession, but just some general tips and guidelines that we kind of see within working with clients that have helped them, but also some things to kind of think about if we are heading in an area where, we're not going to be able to necessarily be spending as freely. But before we hop into this, if you like this content or you're getting some level of education through it, make sure to like and subscribe to our channel, and feel free to share to one of your friends if you think that they could benefit from this too. The number one tip to navigating a recession is to first have a financial health check to be able to know where you are standing financially. By being able to assess your financial situation, looking at your income, your expenses, your debts, all these things, and looking over one umbrella, you're able to see, where do I kind of stand, and not necessarily compare to someone, but where do I stand? Am I in a healthy position to weather this storm? Knowing your net worth, what are you saving per month? Are you able to potentially adjust that spending? Knowing your financial health is important, and everyone's gonna look different, so you gotta make sure to do it on your own. The second tip is to be able to create a budget, but also be able to adjust that budget accordingly, depending on what period of the economic cycle we are in. A recession typically means that you're going to have reduced income or increased expenses, or potentially even both. So being able to adjust your income accordingly most likely will benefit you, but also to be able to look at, what are my non-discretionary expenses, so expenses that are needed, and then your discretionary expenses where you have some choice on whether you can spend that or not, such as going out to a restaurant or maybe paying for some sort of entertainment. Vacations, all these kind of things are discretionary expenses. You don't need it, they're wants. So being able to adjust your budget accordingly during these times and being aware of that is very important. The third tip is, and we say this a lot on our channel, is build an emergency fund. This is very important because during these periods, unemployment may become an issue. You might lose your job. You might have these increased expenses where you're actually dipping into your savings. Having some sort of buffer is going to be super important during this time, and it will save you from having to withdraw from retirement assets and from hindering your plan overall. As planners, we always say plan for the unexpected, so make sure you're doing so as well. But the fourth tip is making sure to focus in on a certain amount of debt. So making sure that you're reducing the debt. Obviously that's higher interest bearing, but being able to have some flexibility of where you're allocating those dollars to be most efficient as possible. Which leads to my next point, number 5, which is being able to not take on additional debt unless necessary. This is very important, especially when you're entering in this period where, interest rates might be increasing. We might see different income, different expenses. It's not good to be taking on more debt than you can already service in order to accommodate for your lifestyle. Number 6, invest wisely. A recession causes a lot of volatility in the market. There's going to be a lot of movements of ups and downs, unknowns, but this can also create a lot of investment opportunities. So if you're able to have extra cash sitting on the sidelines, you think it's a good time, make sure to either do the research yourself and make sure to be diligent in that, or you could reach out to a financial advisor, financial planner, and have them kind of build out a plan for you to make sure that you're not just doing the research on your own. Number 7, try to secure multiple income streams. If possible, multiple income streams can really help you weather a recession, especially if there's unemployment or there's increased expenses. Being able to do extra work on the side, whether it's freelance, a side gig, you're a handyman, or a consultant, you're able to make extra income by utilizing your resources or the skill that you have. Number 8, upgrade your skills and education. Now, this might not necessarily apply to navigating a recession when you're in a recession, but as a whole, going throughout the year, make sure that you're increasingly learning, increasing your education, increasing your skills, so that it makes yourself more employable. So that when a recession hits or there's a lot of companies that are starting to lay off people, that you're not that choice because you have done the extra skills, you've done the extra learning, that they want to keep you. You're a key resource to the company. Number 9, and probably one of the most important things, and you probably hear this a lot, especially when periods of volatility within the stock market, is avoid panic selling. This is probably one of the worst things that you could do during this time. And history has shown and data has shown that a good majority of you do panic sell. Even though you might not hear it or might not want to talk about it, a ton of you do. The biggest thing is to be able to weather that storm and to ride it out, because that is typically the worst time to sell, is when you're at a loss or the market is down. An easy way that I try to avoid this is just don't check your investments on a daily, on a monthly. Just offload the app, don't log in, just delete it for that time being, and don't come back to it until you know the market's doing relatively well. It has helped me not to constantly monitor my investments, but it'll also help you and avoid you from panic selling. Number 10, negotiate and seek deals. And I would typically recommend this for anyone, no matter what period you're in, but most likely businesses are willing to negotiate more when they're not making as much. They're willing to kind of, reduce their costs or reduce the price of things because they need to sell more in order to be profitable. So utilize that to your advantage and try to find those deals. Tip number 11, make sure to stay informed. Make sure to follow the news, learn about the economic trends, kind of have a broad idea of how these cycles work so that you have an understanding of when we're in an expansion, when we're in a recession, when we're able to kind of be able to adjust these tips and strategies accordingly so that you can benefit from them. And number 12, finally, take care of your mental and physical health during these periods. Financial stress is a huge issue, and it is one of those things that have a lot of strain on families and on individuals. So make sure that you're able to nurture yourself physically, be able to do physical activities, be able to take care of yourself mentally, so that you're able to not only weather this storm, but to be able to come out of it a better person. These 12 steps or strategies are relatively generic and they don't necessarily apply to everyone. Everyone is in a unique situation and everyone's strategy might apply to them differently. So make sure to talk to someone, make sure to be able to do your research, be diligent with what you do, and be able to get advice when necessary. By building these 12 strategies in your day-to-day living, you're going to be well ahead of the curve when it comes to your financial position, as well as overall knowledge of your finances.